Today's podcast is brought to you by alleyrepair.com. Don't leave your skee-ball machines lying around collecting dust in the basement. Let alleyrepair.com bring those machines back to life. High-quality workmanship for your skee-ball playing needs. Contact alleyrepair.com today. Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Pro Like Football podcast. This episode we look at the final playoff brackets, we try to make some sense of the coaching carousel that's about to hit the NFL, we discuss some of the impending free agents, and make some bold predictions about what we can expect from the first week of the playoffs. So let's get started with the craziness of the coaching carousel around the league. This week, we've seen a whole lot of coaches fired, walk away, let go, whatever you want to call it. And we've got multiple openings for the 2017 season. We start off with Mike McCoy of the San Diego Chargers. For anyone who knows Mr. Fro here, I am a Chargers fanatic, and I am very sad to see Mike McCoy go after 4 years. Was not able to get them over the hump like a lot of us were hoping and expecting. Had a great quarterback. Phillip Rivers is a stud. Great tight end. Antonio Gates. Hunter Henry emerging. Great running back, young kid, Melvin Gordon starting to turn into something, but at the end of the day, not able to make the push in a division that saw three teams with legitimate playoff potential heading into the final weeks of the season. So Mike McCoy is going to ride off into the sunset. It is a little too early to see who the leading candidates for the job are, but I am hoping as a devoted Chargers fan that they bring in someone who can really turn this team up and get them to the next level. Then we look at Chip Kelly. For 2 years in a row, we're looking at Chip Kelly going home early. He has been fired from the 49ers. There's a total team overhaul coming. They fired the general manager, Trent Baalke. Everybody's gone. That's the way it looks like. And now we need to look at what they're going to do to build themselves back to a championship-level team. Multiple possibilities exist here. There are so many talented people out there who could make the jump into the role of a head coach, but we're going to have to wait and see. The 49ers have toiled in mediocrity or less than mediocrity since Jim Harbaugh left, and we're going to have to see what they can do to bring some respect back to that team. On the flip side, you've got Gary Kubiak. He announces his resignation from the Broncos. It is believed that it is purely health-related, though the interesting note today is that he has not closed the door on other possibilities. Not entirely sure what that means, since he had stated earlier in the week that the rigors of being a head coach are really what made him make this decision. And, who knows where he's going to go from here, but good luck to Gary Kubiak. We wish him nothing but good health and happiness going forward. But for the Broncos, moving forward, a couple names have already popped up as hypothetical replacements. The Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator Vance Joseph taking that team to new heights this year, a place where Miami hasn't been as of late. Bringing back the careers of people like Byron Maxwell and making them serviceable in that Miami defense. He looks like he could be the fit for the Denver Broncos. Also, Atlanta's Kyle Shanahan, running one of the most effective and fast-paced offenses in the NFL. Kyle Shanahan would easily be a great fit for the Broncos. We'll have to keep our eye on that. As everybody knows, a couple weeks ago, Jeff Fisher let go by the Rams. Now word is out that Sean Payton, coach of the New Orleans Saints, may be interested in making the shift, and there's mutual interest between he and the Rams. Now look, Sean Payton and the Saints this year, they did a good job putting up a lot of points against a lot of great teams. Even in Week 17, when you're out of the playoffs, still putting up tons of points on the Atlanta Falcons, a team that easily could be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl, tells you that the Saints are not all that far away from being a legit contender. And Drew Brees, being as old as he is, still being able to put up monstrous numbers, somehow not in the Pro Bowl this year, which I'll never understand. A guy who's leading the NFL in passing. But with Sean Payton, he may be looking for something new. He has been in New Orleans for quite a while now and does not seem to get the same level of respect as some of the other coaches. There is some word out there that this week that Sean McVay may be a candidate to replace Jeff Fisher, but I really am intrigued by this Sean Payton situation. Something to keep our eyes on, and if he were to move on, he would then fill the spot over in New Orleans. Gus Bradley fired by the Jaguars. This was not a surprise. The Jaguars were really expected to do some things this year after last year's campaign last year, you looked at that team and you saw an offense. You had Allen Hurns catching everything under the sun. You had Allen Robinson catching everything under the sun. You had a running back, TJ Yeldon, who looked like he was on the cusp of becoming something special. And Blake Bortles, who was throwing everything out of his mind. You had a defense that looked serviceable. You come into this year and they just totally disappeared. Blake Bortles regressed significantly. Allen Hurns shouldn't even have been on the field. He wasn't catching anything. And even Allen Robinson, nowhere near the form he had last year. This year, after the firing of Gus Bradley, which if anybody remembers last week was the awkward moment of the week with him flying back with the team despite being fired, now it sounds like they're interested in potentially talking to Tom Coughlin, former Giants coach, potentially coming in for a position interviewed this past week. Not sure exactly what position that was, or if it has anything to do with the coaching, or if it's a consulting thing. Definitely something to keep an eye on. We move on to the Buffalo Bills and their axing of Rex Ryan. Not at all a surprise. Rex Ryan, look, the guy did great as a coordinator, but since he's been a head coach, have not seen anything that indicates head coaching capability. The Buffalo Bills, they should have known last year, this guy is not the man for the team. It's looking right now, former offensive coordinator and the acting head coach, Anthony Lynn, has a legitimate shot to secure the job for himself. And in all honesty, with the types of injuries they've dealt with this year, Sammy Watkins being out for the better part of the year, LaShawn McCoy constantly in and out of the lineup with his own issues, there really wasn't a lot going for the Bills. I mean, if you look at their roster, look at their wide receivers. Is there anybody in their wide receiver core that would start on almost any other football team in the league, except maybe teams like the Rams or the Eagles, who have no wide receivers to speak of? Probably not. The Buffalo Bills did the best they could with what they had, and Anthony Lynn's done a pretty good job in relief of Rex Ryan. After you look at those teams, you got to take a look at candidates that are out there that are being talked about. Terrell Austin, the defensive coordinator of the Lions, he ever since 2014, when he took that team and made their defense solid, he has been considered for positions in the past, never made the jump. This could be the year. He has taken that team, they have a consistent defense for the last 3 years, and now it may be time for him to finally get his shot at a head coaching. As opposed to somebody else that people are talking about, buzzing about Jim Schwartz in the Philadelphia Eagles. His defensive coordinator job there may, could be considered to be somewhat of a moderate success, despite the fact that the Eagles are not in the playoffs. Jim Schwartz did a lot with a little. The team does not have a ton of defensive firepower. Cornerbacks are horrendous on the team, and yet he still was able to keep the team competitive in most of their games. Jim Schwartz has been a head coach before. It's something to keep an eye on. He did not do well with Detroit. We'll have to see what happens if he gets an opportunity elsewhere, as well as his offensive coordinator buddy Frank Reich, who's getting a lot of positive buzz. I heard some conversation about he in Buffalo, some about he in potentially San Francisco. Don't know if I would make that move yet. I don't know that he has proven himself to be a head coach yet. But I got to tell you, with a young rookie quarterback in Carson Wentz with virtually no weapons to speak of until the last couple weeks, a little bit of emergence from Zach Ertz, and a little bit of solid play from Jordan Matthews, who disappeared at the end of the year, Frank Reich has done a pretty good job with very limited talent. So I won't say that he won't get a job this offseason, but it's something, if I was a hiring GM, I would wait just a little longer to see what he does over time. Someone who's waited their time and needs another shot at a head coaching position is Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator of the Patriots, former head coach of the Denver Broncos. Look, Josh McDaniels has proven that you can make wide receivers and you can make a great scheme around very little talent. In New England, let's be real. Outside of Rob Gronkowski, there's really not a ton of talent on that wide receiver board. Yes, you've got these role players, the Julian Edelmans, the Danny Amendolas, people like that of the world, the Dion Lewis, things like that. Role players who fill the spot, they get the job done, but nobody who consistently, week in and week out, with the exception again of Gronkowski, who's going to be that 10 catch for 150 yards and a touchdown. There's nobody that you can bank on every week. And because of that, Josh McDaniels' ability to make the Patriots the perennial favorites to win the Super Bowl every single year is just a testament to his quality coordinating. So I would not be surprised to see Josh McDaniels get his opportunity. Tom Brady came out this week. It was reported indicating that he supported Josh McDaniels getting another position, saying great coaches get opportunities. I couldn't agree more. On that same vine is Sean McDermott in the Panthers. Sean McDermott is a solid coaching candidate every year. For some reason, I've never understood the last 2 years why he has not gotten a position. The guy absolutely deserves an opportunity to lead a team and show what he can do. He has made the Panthers a solid offensive unit every single year, including this year, despite the fact that the team's record is horrendous. If you look at the team, you've got Ted Ginn, who's 104 years old. You got Kelvin Benjamin, who's coming back from knee surgery. You've got Devin Butchus, who might as well not even be on the field. There's no one to throw to. Greg Olsen, who started out the year his same old self, solid contributor, and then fizzled at the end of the year. With very little talent, Sean McDermott put together a decent scheme all year long, kept a lot of those games competitive. Sean McDermott should be getting an opportunity soon. Along with him, Harold Goodwin of the Cardinals, Paul Gunther, the defensive coordinator of the Bengals, Edgar Bennett, the offensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers, Darrell Bevell, offensive coordinator of Seattle, and even Pat Shurmur, the offensive coordinator of the Vikings. All great resumes, very easily can make a case for being new coaches this year. Of that little cluster there of candidates, my absolute favorite, the one that I'm really pulling for, and this is the fantasy football fan in me, is Edgar Bennett. I had Edgar Bennett on my fantasy team back in the late 90s, early 2000s. He was a great player. He's taken his time. He's been with the Packers all but 3 years of his entire NFL career, including his playing and coaching time. He's been a disciple of the Green Bay Packers system, and it's time for someone who's been a lifer to really step up and get an opportunity. So I'm pulling for Edgar Bennett to get one of those positions that's out there. We're going to turn our attention now to the playoff matchup. Based on everything we saw in Week 17, another amazing week of football, we have the playoff matches all set. As we enter the wild card round, and some of the matchups are a surprise, but they're also the result of some poor timing and execution. 3 weeks ago, everyone would have been able to make an argument that the Oakland Raiders may have been on a collision course with the Super Bowl. But after the loss of Derek Carr and the league refusing to rule on Aldon Smith until March, the Raiders have been in a tailspin mode. They lost Week 17 to the Broncos, 24-6. They saw Matt McGloin go down with apparent shoulder injury, leaving Connor Cook as the go-to man in Oakland. The kid has had limited reps in practice on being a third-string quarterback. He was acceptable against the tough Denver defense. He went 14 of 21, 150 yards, a touchdown, a pick. Those aren't terrible numbers, but those numbers are never going to bring you to the big dance, even if Matt McGloin comes back. Anybody who watched that game this weekend saw McGloin show absolutely not one shred of ability to put the ball where it needs to be. He consistently overthrew wide-open receivers. It's not looking good for the Raiders. They can be sure to see a tough defense as they match up next week with the Houston Texans in the wild card round. Despite a horrendous play all year by Brock Osweiler, the Texans have the defense and have made their way into the playoffs by going through an underperforming AFC South division. They really have to thank the Colts and Andrew Luck for giving away some really close games. They got to thank the Jaguars, more specifically, again, Blake Bortles, for regressing after that season last year that everyone thought was going to be huge this year. And even the Tennessee Titans, who had the AFC's rushing king this year, the resurgent DeMarco Murray, and they had Marcus Mariota playing great football for much of the season. But when Mariota went down, it opened the door of opportunity for the Houston Texans to take hold. When the Raiders and Texans meet, it'll be an interesting matchup. My bold prediction for this matchup, Houston Texans pull this one out 28-9 and move on in their quest for postseason glory. If not, the rumor mill has been swirling about the Texans too, indicating that there could be some mutual splitting or parting of the ways between the Houston Texans and their head coach, Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien's done an amazing job with that team. When he first got there, he was strong-willed enough to move on aging veterans like Andre Johnson, draft young players, DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, bring in key free agents, Lamar Miller, things like that. He's done a great job. But in a year when we have so many coaching opportunities out there, it wouldn't surprise me a bit to see O'Brien move on to a situation where he's not stuck with a $72 million quarterback with limited skills. I would not be surprised to see him land in a place like San Francisco or something of that nature. Moving on, we have the Miami Dolphins. They're scheduled to battle the Pittsburgh Steelers wild card week. Big Ben and company looked great heading into that matchup. This would have been an amazing matchup, say, about 4 weeks ago when Miami was on fire and Pittsburgh was still kind of finding its way. But with Ben, Le'Veon Bell, and Antonio Brown playing out of their minds, and then you add in the contributions from Ladarius Green, I don't see this one ending well for the Dolphins. Miami has done some amazing things this year, as the old saying goes, any given Sunday. But despite the resurgence of people like Byron Maxwell and Matt Moore coming in and things like that, I don't see Matt Moore and Jarvis Landry taking Miami deep into January. I just don't see it. I see this one going down the Steelers' way, and I think the Steelers move on into a killer matchup week 2 of the playoffs, no matter who they end up playing. On the NFC side of things, we have the Detroit Lions heading to Seattle to face an up-and-down Seahawks team that struggled heavily Week 17 against the lame duck Chip Kelly and San Francisco 49ers team that, this game could be game of the week next week. Matthew Stafford's been on fire this season, even without Calvin Johnson. You could make the argument that he's better without Calvin Johnson because he's not relying on the go-to threat. He just finds ways to win. He has so many weapons that go unnoticed. How many people out there really realize Anquan Bolden has 8 touchdowns this season and over 65 catches? Not a lot of people. Golden Tate has also been huge. Even Zach Zenner has been productive. A running back who at the start of the season, I guarantee you, not one fantasy league in America drafted Zach Zenner for their team because no one saw that kid coming. He too this week, 65 yards and a touchdown or whatever, about right around halftime. On the Seahawks side of things, Tyler Lockett going down hurt. Thomas Rolls cannot find a way to get his wheels turning. That's not helping. As always, though, they have a killer defense. Seattle causes defensive coordinators nightmares, and this one should be a great back-and-forth battle. My prediction, Detroit Lions 24, Seattle 21. I see Detroit moving on to the next round. Finally, we have the Green Bay Packers going up against the New York Giants. This, at least on paper, is supposed to be the big match of the week. But it really comes down to the innovative Green Bay offense versus the stout Giants defense. That's the real matchup here in this competition. In the end, the Giants have some firepower on offense, but I question their ability to put up a ton of points against the stingy Packers D. And I expect the Packers to overwhelm them in a rout, maybe say in the neighborhood of 35-24 victory. In our final segment today, we're looking at some of the marquee free agents that will be available this offseason and discuss who they may benefit most starting with. We're going to begin with Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell is the powerhouse back and all-around talent. This past week, speculation came out that the Steelers may let him walk after the end of the season. With his history of substance abuse issues, it's possible. In the end, I don't see anywhere better for Bell than to take a hometown discount and win a couple championships with the Steelers. If the Steelers allow Bell to hit free agency, they deserve to lose. He's a generational level back. He should be in Pittsburgh for the long haul. Next on the list is Alshon Jeffrey. Jeffrey's paid his dues in Chicago. It's time to get paid. Yeah, he got suspended for 4 games this season. Yeah, he has an injury history, but he's 27 years old, and he can still burn the opposing defense. He'd be a perfect fit for a team getting close to the Super Bowl. And you gotta wonder, after toiling in Chicago for all these years, does Jeffrey take big dollars playing for a mediocre or even an entry-level team, or does he really go after a ring somewhere? My money's on Tennessee. I haven't seen that anywhere published. That's my prediction. I think Jeffrey would pair well with Rashard Matthews and give Marcus Mariota a big speedster to take pressure off both Matthews and DeMarco Murray. Others have indicated he may go to the 49ers or the Eagles, but Tennessee makes a lot of sense, especially considering how well they're playing prior to the injury of Marcus Mariota. I can't see him wanting to start all over again with Jared Goff and the Rams or anywhere else for that matter. I would hold out hope for Tennessee. I think he could really make an impact there. Making an impact also Terrell Pryor. An amazing year, what looks to get paid this offseason after putting up a career year for the Browns. The Browns have around $108 million in cap space and can easily afford to keep Pryor, who's indicated he'd be open to re-signing with the Browns. Let's face it, they gave him an opportunity when almost nobody else would. But I see his potential going elsewhere if he hits the open market. It's one of these situations where the Rams would make a lot of sense. You could even throw the Ravens into the mix, as all those teams are looking for ways to replace an aging group of wide receivers and would benefit from Pryor's versatility. Along with that, you've got people like Deshaun Jackson, a boomer-bust player over the past couple seasons for the Redskins, and they could be willing to part ways at the end of the season. He made $9 million this year. That's a huge number for he's going to have to get to re-sign. Rumors have speculated on his return to Philadelphia for months now. I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. It's a shame that we had to see Chip Kelly dissolve a great offense in Philly by getting rid of Deshaun Jackson and Sean McCoy and Jeremy Maclin during his tenure there, but I fear Jackson's getting closer to the end after several injuries over the past couple seasons, but if I were a betting man, I expect Jackson to surprise all of us and go elsewhere. Yeah, there's a story there to be told with a return to Philadelphia, but a move to a new team looking for a fresh start might be a perfect fit for him. Teams like the Jets, who may want to move on from the Brandon Marshall era, or the Panthers, whose receivers left them out to dry this week and this whole season, could swoop in and make a play for Jackson. The same can't be said for his buddy Pierre Garçon. As his impending free agency approaches, I expect the Redskins to keep Garçon and lock him in for his final contract of his career. That being said, it wouldn't surprise me a bit to see him back in Washington, but if he does make a move elsewhere, I would like to see him look at a team like the Atlanta Falcons or the Miami Dolphins as being a better fit for his services. They both need solid contributors to take pressure off their top wide receivers. Julio Jones would have been even better this year if he had somebody on the other side of the field who was a burner. Same thing with Jarvis Landry. Needed somebody on the other side of the field. That's all the time we have for this episode, but check back with us in episode 3 where we'll review the Wildcard round of action and look ahead to Divisional Week in the NFL. Special thanks go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all the music and sound effects used throughout today's show. Today's podcast was sponsored in part by fastweb.com. Search the FastWeb database and help your student access scholarships and financial aid information with the FastWeb free and easy-to-use scholarship search engine. Investigate the college of your dreams with the FastWeb College Profile search engine. Let FastWeb be your guide to higher education. To the U.S. News & World Report Best Colleges 2017, available at Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble now. To Fafi Metal Detectors Plus, whether you're the casual hunter, the energetic beachcomber, or the underwater enthusiast, Fafi detectors have solutions for all of your metal detecting needs. To A&B Education of Lansdale, bringing intercultural education to talented students from around the world. We want to thank you for listening to today's podcast, and we encourage you to go to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com to learn more about what Mr. Fro can do for you and your path to higher education. Remember, Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments out with us today, and we look forward to chatting with all of you once again. But for now, be safe and enjoy the new year.